Mr. Sridhar Bhaskaran is a senior product manager. He is a senior product manager at Altiostar. He has been involved in the wireless industry for 18 years. In his current role, he is actively engaged with operators that are deploying Open RAN. He has been the active contributor to 3GPP standards, including RAN 3. He is also involved in ORAN standards and brings in unique experiences on the benefits and approach to deploying Open RAN. Over to Sridhar Bhaskaran, please.
Hello everyone, and thanks to TEC for this opportunity. So this session will be about Atmanirbhar Telecom ecosystem, building it with open and disaggregated RAN. For those who are joining from outside India, Atmanirbhar means a self-reliant India. So let me just share my presentation. So I hope my screen is visible. Okay.
Yes, visible.
Yeah, so before we jump into the session, the way this session is structured is we will talk about how the existing legacy radio networks are built for LTE, and then from there we will move into how the open ecosystem is bringing in a different form of looking at the network and how that helps in fostering innovation locally within India, and then it also helps in building an ecosystem of vendors that can achieve true Atmanirbhar in building the telecom equipment ecosystem. And then we will look at how the operator engagement process in this ecosystem looks like. Then we will also look into some of the key security aspects of this. There has been a lot of talk about security in Open RAN ecosystem, so we will look into that. And finally, some key policy aspects related to fostering this open ecosystem. So before we go there, a brief introduction about Altiostar. So Altiostar was a company that was formed in 2012. The founders of Altiostar come from background of successful startup formation and then exits in the past. So Ashraf Dawood, who's the CEO of our company, he was the founder of Starent Networks, which was successfully sold to Cisco in the year 2009. And thereafter he formed this company Altiostar with the vision of bringing in openness and software-based radio access network. At that time, it was felt that radio access networks were built with closed ecosystem, and it opened out an opportunity for niche players to come and look at this architecture in an innovative way. So that's where the company was formed with these vision statements. And we have been in the market for the past 8 years. So initially we started off with building the radio equipment on top of silicon available from other vendors, and thereafter we moved the radio baseband processing to the virtualized platform running on top of Intel x86 processors, and we are now commercially deployed in Rakuten in Japan, and we are also actively engaged with multiple operators in North America, Europe, and India. So this ecosystem has been growing now. And as a company, we have heavily invested in talent coming from India. Our R&D center is located in Bangalore, and the entire research and development for the baseband software is driven from Bangalore. So we have engineers who have the physical layer expertise, Mac, and the higher layer expertise, and also we bring in automation and virtualization expertise. So it's a mesh of 500 odd people who bring in different expertise from their past experience, and it's a unique place where we have assembled the right talent to bring in innovation in this open ecosystem. So as I mentioned, we are already deployed in Rakuten. 50,000 sites are already up, and we have more than 1 million subscribers in the network. And we are also actively engaged with Airtel in India for both macro and small cells. and we have deployments in North America and Europe as well. And there are a lot of upcoming deployments, Telefonica in Europe and Dish Networks, which John was alluding to earlier. So Dish is the new operator in US who is going as a greenfield 5G operator, and the way they are starting their network is like they are looking at the network as a completely open and disaggregated network with end-to-end automation. And there are a lot of trials as well ongoing. So coming to how the legacy RAN architecture looks like. So today, irrespective of who the vendor for the radio access network, so the way the radio access network is built is the operator gives out specific regions to different vendors. It could be Huawei, Ericsson, or Nokia, and they build the network with equipments coming from these vendors, and the interface between the radio units, which are sitting at the cell site, and the baseband unit, which could also be at the cell site. That interface is largely proprietary. It's not an open interface. And so when you build out a network with large number of cell sites, so this creates a sort of a vendor lock-in. The other thing is since the interfaces are proprietary, it limits the innovation for new players to come up with niche applications that can optimize the network. And it also works in a fashion where the software and the hardware required for small cells and macro are different, and every time you need to look at a small cell deployment or a macro deployment, you need to go in for a different software licensing and hardware. And security is also, of course, controlled by the respective vendors. So the operators do not have control on the security. So yeah, this gives a picture of how the legacy RAN architecture looks like as I showed in the earlier slide. So if you look at a typical cell site, you will have antennas and the radio unit, which is called the RRH, that is connected to the baseband unit, which is at the tower bottom. And the baseband unit connects to the core network through the standard 3GPP interfaces. So if you look at the interface between the baseband unit and the RRH, it is CIP3 based, and the messages carried in the CIP3 interface are largely proprietary. The IQ samples are sent in the time domain, and how the messages are structured, it is vendor specific. All the red lines that you see in this figure are vendor specific. These are not standard interfaces. So even up to the point of managing this network, the management interfaces are also largely proprietary. So this creates a situation where the operator gets logged into the vendor, and this does not help in building an ecosystem that is ground up, built indigenously in India. So what it makes is it takes years to build an ecosystem indigenously in India if you have to build this entire system. So the goal of Atmanirbhar, when we say that India has to reach self-reliance in telecom ecosystem, should be to foster innovation within India. And if you have to foster innovation in such a closed system, it becomes extremely difficult. So that's where an open and disaggregated system helps in bringing in niche players who are experts in the relevant areas, and then that builds an ecosystem to build a truly Atmanirbhar telecom equipment ecosystem. So if you look at the components that are part of the baseband unit and the radio unit in the legacy network, so these are largely the components. So if you look at the bottom layer, you have the timing and synchronization hardware, you have FPGAs and ASICs for physical layer signal processing, and you have some general purpose processor that can run the higher layers of the stack like MAC, RLC, PDCP, and RRC. So typically the lower layers, you require expertise in chip design, silicon manufacturing, hardware and silicon design for ruggedness to outdoor environment. Since the base stations are deployed in an outdoor environment, ruggedness is also a key factor in building them. and also expertise in building signal processing algorithms. So this is one set of expertise. Whereas if you look at the right-hand side, where you have the higher layers of the stack, that is completely software-driven, and you need people with software expertise who are good in algorithms and building protocol stacks. And today, both these expertise are kind of integrated by a single vendor, and they give the entire solution to the operator. So building such an ecosystem end to end within India will take many years to build this expertise. So that's where disaggregating helps in fostering an ecosystem in India. So coming to how the open ecosystem works with open interfaces and virtualization. So as you can see in the top portion, as I explained in the earlier slide, the radio network is built with all the vertically integrated stack by one vendor. Whereas if you look at the bottom portion, this gets disaggregated into multiple components. The baseband unit as such gets split into the virtualized distributed unit and the virtualized central unit, and the physical layer MAC and the RLC layer of the stack runs in the distributed unit, whereas the PDCP RRC runs in the centralized unit. Now, with 5G, 3GPP has already specified the interface between the DU and the CU. 3GPP calls it as the option 2 split. The interface is called the F1. Where O-RAN Alliance comes in is in specifying an open interface for the left-hand side between the baseband unit and the radio unit, so where the physical layer information is sent. So now with this open interface, it truly disaggregates this market where niche vendors in each area can come and interoperate and build this network. So as you can see, similar to the earlier slide I showed for the legacy network, now all the lines here in this network are green. The green lines imply that these interfaces are now standardized. So between the ODU and the ORU, the fronthaul interface is also standardized by the O-RAN Alliance, and the 3GPP option 2 compliant mid-all is there, which is the F1 interface. And the management plane interface for managing this network, especially when you have tens of thousands of sites, that is also now getting standardized by the O-RAN Alliance and also by 3GPP. So you have standard YAN models coming from the vendors, and since it's the management is model driven, you can host the YAN models in the management system and manage this network end to end. So what this disaggregated and open architecture brings in is an open fronthaul interface, an open mid-all interface, an open management plane interface, and it also by disaggregating, it gives you multiple choices for selecting the physical layer accelerators, the DU vendor, the CU vendor, and the RRH vendor. And what we are also seeing is now with the baseband running on a COTS server, multiple players are coming in with their timing and synchronization hardware solution in PCIe form factor, which can fit into a COTS hardware and can meet the stringent timing requirements of telecommunication networks. And then there is also, O-RAN has also specified multiple topologies for timing and synchronization. So O-RAN calls it as lower layer split C1 architecture, C2 architecture, and C3 architecture. So the operator can choose between the different topologies depending on their requirements. And it also allows you to host the DU either at the cell site or in a data center. Since the fronthaul interface is standardized, it does not put any barrier on where to place the DU. The only requirement for the fronthaul interface is it has to meet the capacity to carry the IQ samples required for all the radios at a cell site. So as long as there is capacity on the fronthaul, you can host the DU anywhere. If capacity is a constraint, you can put the DU at the cell site, as John was presenting in his previous slide, and you can use the existing microwave links or cable links or fiber links for the mid-all interface. Now, Going one level further from the previous slide, what Altiostar and also Mavenir have been saying is like you can move these workloads of the baseband processing to a data center. So you can build this complete RAN network on a cloud. So as you can see here, at the cell side, only the RU and the cell side router remains. All the rest of the processing gets moved to a edge data center and a regional data center. The middle blue box that you see on this figure is an edge data center where you can place the virtualized distributed unit workload, and that gets connected to a regional data center where you can place the central unit which runs the RRC and the PDCP part of the stack. And since all these interfaces are open now, you can run this network in a cloud native fashion. And this also brings in aspects of cloud native security. So security has been a topic that has been addressed in cloud native architecture for a long time now. And there are players who are experts in that and who have built robust solutions that make the cloud infrastructure hardened, and it's very hard to get and intrude into such network. So you can adopt the best practices of cloud native security in such an architecture. And another key aspect that moving the RAN to a cloud infrastructure brings in is you can do true zero touch commissioning. What I mean by zero touch commissioning is the only manual intervention required for bringing up a radio site is for the engineer to go to the site and switch on the radio. So once the radio is powered on, the entire process of downloading the day one configuration, bringing the cell operational, and then loading the subscribers onto the cell, that process can be completely automated. I'll cover that in a subsequent slide, how this end-to-end zero-touch provisioning works in a secure fashion. So this is what the RAN on a cloud brings to you as a flexibility. Now, coming to the components in a disaggregated RAN. So as I presented in the earlier slide, where all the components of the RAN stack are vertically integrated by a single operator, but in a disaggregated RAN, these parts can be split and each part can be owned by different vendor. So different colors in this figure shows that each of the component can come from a different vendor. For example, timing and synchronization can come from a vendor who specializes in timing and synchronization. The FPGA or EASIC for the physical layer signal processing and acceleration of some of the key algorithms like the forward error correction in the physical layer. Those can come from experts who are in that specific area. You can get general purpose processor from say Intel or AMD or ARM, and then you can run an operating system with a real-time kernel and a container platform, and on top of it you can run the baseband workload as software, physical layer, upper part of the physical layer signal processing, MAC and the scheduler and RLC on top of the container platform. Now looking at the CU side, again CU side you can have a general purpose card server. On top of it you can run an operating system with a container platform and run the upper layers of the radio stack for both the control plane and the user plane. Specifically from ORAN architecture perspective, they have introduced a new element called the near real-time RAN intelligent controller. The function of this RAN intelligent controller is to abstract and take out the radio resource management functionality from the baseband unit and put it into cloud native application infrastructure like this RIC. What this RIC enables operators is to build in niche applications for the radio network management and optimization. The interface for this near real-time RIC towards the DU and the CU is called the E2 interface by ORAN. And this near real-time RIC works with a centralized service management orchestrator and a non-real-time RIC. So the non-real-time RIC works at a time scale of a few seconds to a few minutes, while the near real-time RIC works at a time scale of a few milliseconds. So that's how the ORAN has structured this architecture. And as I mentioned, the different colored components in this figure can come from different vendors. So what is required to build this open disaggregated system? So this brings in a diversified ecosystem with each vendor focusing on a niche area. The system integrator's role in building this network by assembling all these components is a key role in building these open RAN networks. And presence of the system integrator as well as the individual vendors in this ecosystem in ORAN Alliance is important, because a lot of discussion is happening in the ORAN Alliance, and those discussions have to be taken into consideration while building the product, and the interfaces have to be compliant to some of the specifications provided by ORAN Alliance. And the solution architect who could stitch all these things end to end and provide a solution to an operator for the specific requirements is also important. So this role is a key role in an open RAN ecosystem. Coming to how this ecosystem is evolving, Altiostar in particular have been engaged with the different cards, hardware vendors, with different cloud software providers, and we are a software vendor for the RAN application. So as you can see, the DU and CU part and also the management part that comes from Altiostar, but our software works on any cloud native platform, any cards hardware, and we also integrate with multiple radio vendors. So this radio vendor ecosystem is it is increasing day by day. We are seeing a lot of vendors now coming into the market. Mavneer talked about MTI. There's also KMW, Xilinx, and then NEC. Altiostar also does their own radio design, though we don't manufacture the radio. We partner with companies like Flex and Jabil for the manufacturing. And of course, we have companies that are homegrown in India, Sankhya Labs and STL, that is also coming up in the scene. We see active involvement of these companies in ORAN Alliance as well. So it is heartening to see that ecosystem growing in India. And similarly, from a system integrator perspective, Tech Mahindra is also an Indian company that is into this ecosystem now. And so, having touched upon how this open RAN ecosystem looks like, let's take a look at how the operator's engagement process looks like in such a network. So typically in a legacy RAN network, the operator just goes to a vendor, he gives them the requirement, and it is completely the vendor's responsibility to provide a solution for the operator. But then the operator gets logged into that vendor for running the network. But in an open RAN ecosystem, there are multiple stages that an operator has to go through in building this network. So first it starts with the operator engagement with the vendor ecosystem. So operator comes out with a list of requirements. They provide their expected call model, traffic profile, what are their transport network capabilities. They provide their expected coverage requirements. And then they might have some preference on the virtualization platform. Say some might prefer Red Hat, some might prefer VMware, some might have a preference for say OpenStack based platform. So depending on the operator's preference, we choose the virtualization platform. And some operators may have specific constraints in building their timing and synchronization topology. So some operators may have robust timing and sync in their transport network. So such operators can use the C3 topology, which ORAN has come up with. For operators who do not have timing and synchronization network in the transport side, they can look at the LLS C1 and C2 architecture, which ORAN has specified. And once these requirements are taken, the vendors get into the selection of the right cards hardware to meet these requirements. So in this, the selection of the x86 processor that meets this site dimensioning and the number of sites they want to pool into one baseband unit. So depending on that requirement, selection of the right processor and the right cards hardware matters a lot. And once the cards hardware and the timing and synchronization NIC are selected, then the baseband software gets integrated into that hardware. And also there's an integration with the open RU vendor using the ORAN fronthaul interface, integration with the virtualization platform. And once this is done, if the operator has a service orchestrator to automate this end-to-end network, integration with that automation framework also comes into picture. So the operator is actively engaged in this supply chain management here. And at every stage, the operator is in tight control of this whole process, and he has the right visibility where he stands, and he can hold each vendor accountable here. And system integrator plays the role of assembling these pieces, and he can act as the one point of contact for the operator to answer the operator's questions in engaging these vendors. And once this integration is done, the operator has to focus on building a cluster of Kubernetes nodes. So instead of looking at the radio access network as pieces of hardware that are stitched together, this fundamentally changes the way you look at the network. You have to look at the network as a cloud platform on top of which you run the baseband as an application. So in that aspect, building a cluster for the cloud is very important. So build a Kubernetes cluster with the node feature discovery capabilities. So why this capability is important is some of the baseband workloads like the DU requires a specific hardware elements. For example, the accelerator for the layer 1 processing, and the timing and synchronization hardware. So those are key for the baseband unit, the DU part, to place the workload. So the Kubernetes cluster should have a mix of nodes that have these specific hardware accelerators plugged in as PCIe cards, and on those hardware, the Kubernetes platform will place the workload, the DU workload. And then while onboarding the software, the DU and CU software on this platform, security is also very important. I'll cover the security aspect in the subsequent slides. So it's a separate topic to dig into itself. And then once you onboard the baseband software onto this COTS platform, monitoring the network and optimizing the network in an automated fashion is very important. So once you have built this infrastructure, you can go one level further in making this whole pipeline a complete CI/CD process. What I mean by CI/CD is there's this concept of DevOps, which IT providers and the cloud providers use. That same concept can be brought into a telecom network. So once you have the software release cycle agreed with the vendors, the operator can build a CI/CD pipeline with, say, GitLab and Jenkins in their data center to get the software, push the software to an automated test suite. And once the software passes all the test criteria and no regression issues are found, the software can be onboarded into the network, into the production network, and it can be made live. So this entire process can be automated with this sort of an workflow. So there is a lot of details that is available in this telecom infra project link. So they have created a nice playbook for operators to engage in this ecosystem. I strongly recommend folks who are interested in building this Open RAN ecosystem to take a look at these references. Now, coming to the security aspect, let's take how the power on process of a radio unit at a cell site works. So you go to a cell site and put these radio units at the tower, and you also have built the edge data center where you have the Kubernetes cluster running and where you are going to place the DU and the CU workloads. And you also have a central data center that is running your infrastructure like DHCP, the certificate authority server, the OSS, and the end-to-end orchestrator. So when the radio unit, before the radio unit is powered on, the software images from the vendor, so which comes as a cloud native function package and the image repository. So that gets released to the CI/CD pipeline of the operator. The orchestrator takes it from the pipeline. It takes a signed software. So what I mean by signed software is the software image could be integrity protected, or there could be a checksum in the software that verifies the validity of the software. So before even you onboard the software into the network, the orchestrator has to verify the integrity of the image. Once it is verified, that software package is onboarded into the data center in the Kubernetes cluster. Then the software image downloads an operator certificate from the certificate authority server. So by default, when the image gets released by the vendor, it comes with the vendor certificate. But some operators might want the entire network to be secured through the operator specific certificate. So in such cases, download of this operator specific certificate from the CA server is important. So once it is downloaded, the image gets authorized with the operator certificate, and if there are any default password credentials that are used in these images for offline logging and then monitoring the network, those passwords can be changed from a central system like OSS. This process can be automated. Then once the network, the edge data center and the central data center are ready with the right images, you power on the radio unit at the cell site, and the radio unit sends a power on notification. Typically, it is a netconf column notification. But before that, it has to discover its own IP address and also the IP address of the netconf controller. For that, it issues a DHCP request to the network. So that goes through a switch, and you could configure the switch to allow only DHCP packets from a valid RU. So this DHCP request itself can be made to be authenticated through a certificate, even though the standard DHCP that is specified by IETF does not have certificate authentication, but certificate authentication of DHCP can be done as a value-added service. So you don't allow any rogue radio unit to come into the network and attach there. So once you authenticate the DHCP and download the operator certificate to the RU, what the RU does is it sends a netconf column notification towards the edge data center, and the edge data center then downloads the day one configuration to the RU. It configures the carrier and it turns on the carrier, and the network becomes available for the users to latch on. So this whole process, everything is automated, and security is built in from the image loading process to the power on process of the radio unit, and it makes it extremely hard for any intruder to get into this network. In fact, when we built the network for Rakuten in Japan, during the trial phases, there were explicit security attacks that were launched on the network, and we were able to successfully thwart all those attacks because of this robust security built into this process. So as I mentioned, so this whole process completes. Now coming to rest of the secure interfaces in this network. So you have the ODU to the CU interface, which is the F1 interface specified by 3GPP, that is running over IPsec interface. So that interface is secured by IPsec. And similarly, the E1 interface between the CU control plane and the CU user plane, that can also run over IPsec. And the E2 interface between the DU and the CU towards the near real-time RIC, that can also run over IPsec. So this middle interface from the DU towards the central elements can run over IPsec and can be protected. On the frontal side, you have the management plane and the control user plane and the synchronization plane. The management plane is netconf based, which runs on top of SSH and TLS. So the SSH and TLS provides you a secure interface for the management of the radio unit. And the CU plane, the user plane traffic, which is carried as IQ samples on the frontal, is anyway PDCP ciphered. So the subscriber's privacy is already handled as part of the frontal unit. Now, the control plane and the synchronization plane security, that is an ongoing discussion in ORAN Alliance, and there is a lot of discussion now to secure this interface. And over a period of time, you will see that that part also maturing. And given that the frontal network is anyway within the physically secure boundary of the operator and it is through a trusted network, the traffic of the control plane and the synchronization plane on the frontal can be trusted. Coming to cloud security aspect, so as I mentioned earlier, we have the God server coming from one vendor, the operating system in the container platform coming from another vendor, and the software images coming from yet another vendor. So stitching the security aspect of all these things is very important. So there are a lot of cloud native security best practices. So there is this Kubernetes CIS benchmark which has been published and which is very popular in the cloud industry. It is important that vendors certify their products against these benchmarks, and while you onboard the workload into the cluster, these security aspects are taken into consideration. Coming to the secure CI/CD, DevSecOps pipeline in the operator. So going from the present days where the radio network is seen as isolated pockets in each cell site, where the vendor owns complete control of the security of that network. This process is a radically different process where an operator takes complete control of the security of this whole process. So as I mentioned earlier, the first step here is the software gets released from the vendor. They provide the Helm charts and the Tosca descriptors for their software image, which gets into a software repository hosted by the operator in the data center. And once that repository gets the image, it verifies the image integrity either through certificate signing or through checksum signing. And then it verifies the software image signature. And it could also run vulnerability scanners in an automated fashion and detect any known vulnerabilities. So if there are known security vulnerabilities in the software image, there itself it could be flagged that it is not ready to be launched into the network. If the image passes that criteria, then you run automated test suite. So you could have built a regression test in your network. You can take typical cases like attach and PDP session establishment and data traffic and verify the image is not breaking anything that is already working in the network. And once the test cases are run and they pass the required criteria, you deploy the software into the network. So you tell the orchestrator that the software image has to be deployed. The orchestrator then instantiates the workload into the data center. So as part of this instantiation, the site configuration from the site planning tools also is important. So they provide which site is loaded with which carrier configuration, what is the center frequency there, what is the carrier bandwidth. If a particular site has a specific combination of bands, that also comes in picture. And then in case of 5G, the subcarrier spacing related to the carrier. So all those day zero configurations comes from the site planning tool, and that gets loaded into the software image, and the site becomes operational. So that covers the change in the thought process of building a radio access network from the legacy vendors to an open and disaggregated ecosystem. Coming to India-specific aspects of this Open RAN ecosystem, so some of the key requirements from an infrastructure and policy point of view. So irrespective of where the DU is placed, whether it is placed at cell site or in a data center, 5G requires fiber connectivity to cell site. The reason is, even if you place the DU at the cell site, if you are looking at a 100 megahertz carrier for 5G, that is going to take a lot of bandwidth towards the site. So you might need fiber connectivity that takes in all the bandwidth to the site. So when you build the fiber connectivity, right of way to operators for fiber connectivity becomes a key requirement. This has to be controlled from policy and law perspective. And then for considering the policy initiatives that could help India in becoming truly Atmanirbhar. So if you see, software is India's strength, and this open ecosystem facilitates cloud native software providers to build radio access network as software workloads running on top of CARD's hardware. So considering this strength, if the policy can mandate the radio units that are entering Indian market to support open interfaces, preferably the ORAN fronthaul interface, this could allow the software vendors and the niche players to integrate with any RU that is coming into the market and build a indigenous ecosystem in India. And when you build such an ecosystem, mandating cloud native security best practices is also important. And when you mandate that as a policy, security gets inbuilt into the thought process of building the network. So what I mean by mandating cloud native security best practice is to allow for certificate authentication and admission of the radio units into the network. Then trusted software onboarding process, which I explained in the earlier slide. Then isolated sandbox environment for RAN applications. So what this means is you run the RAN applications with separate container security. So each container should have its access control and secure environment on which the workload runs. And then trust on zero trust. So what this means is you should think of the network as having zero trust. So when you build a network, you suspect every element in the network. So when you bring in that thought process, you straight away start mandating that every network element coming into the network will have should have the security inbuilt into the process. So the support for IPsec, SSH, and TLS becomes mandatory, and some of the aspects like certificate authentication becomes mandatory when you bring in that sort of a zero trust process into the network. Looking at specific application use case, so India has this requirement for low mobility large cell, which requires support for DFTS OFDM in the uplink and pi/2 BPSK with special spectral shaping filter to get extended coverage. Now, so how can virtualized Open RAN baseband can help in this ecosystem? So upper part of the physical layer is completely software based. So support for some of these LMLC requirements can be treated as just a software upgrade in the baseband. So as and when the operators want to turn on these requirements, this could be just considered as a software upgrade on the DU. Looking at rural broadband scenario, the ODU could be at a cell site since rural areas may not have edge data centers. So in such cases, the BharatNet fiber that has been already deployed in many places can be considered as augmentation for the mid-haul interface, carrying the traffic from the DU towards CU, which could be at a town or a city level, and that could aggregate the traffic from multiple village panchayats and build a rural broadband. So some of the observations from our side on the current requirements that we saw from TEC specifications. So while the TEC specifications rightly lay out the requirements for the radio equipment vendors to come into the Indian network, we could not find the requirements for edge data centers. And in an open disaggregated market, the requirements on edge data centers are also key to look at. So this is something that TEC can look into as input to build requirements for hosting edge data centers by the operators and any third-party provider. And can data center grade servers, can they be used at cell site if adequate environment protection is given at the site by use of IP65 cabinets and the required heating and cooling arrangement? So this is an open question. The TEC requirements talks about the equipment working in a wide range of temperature and humidity conditions, because India has varying temperatures from South India to North India and differing humidity conditions. Data center grade servers, if they can be put into an IP65 cabinet. If they can meet these environment protection requirements, can they be looked at as a alternative? So that is something that can be thought about as a guideline, which can be put in the TEC requirements. And also requirements on whether TE's telco cloud shall be hosted within specific geographic boundary. So that part is also not well specified in the TEC requirements now, and data retention and security aspects of telco cloud. So these are some of the observations that we made. We would bring it to the attention of TEC, so TEC can look into this. Yeah, this is my last slide. Coming to the summary of this, as I explained, the open and disaggregated RAN, it helps in fostering innovation and the planned evolution to Atmanirbhar Bharat, and it helps in evolving the local supply chain. As I explained already, the supply chain from indigenous companies in India is also maturing now. We are seeing Indian companies participating in ORAN Alliance, and we are also actively engaging with them. And openness helps in security. So as I explained, since the interfaces are open and we take cloud native best practices, it is a myth to say that open network is not secure. I am borrowing a term from one of our key customers. You can't hunt cockroaches in a dark room. It is a lot easier to find cockroaches when the lights are on. So what this means is when the system is open and the interfaces are open, it brings in scrutiny. Anybody can scrutinize the network, and you can identify security loopholes then and there. And by bringing in the process of validating and checking for vulnerability of the software images, you are stopping insecure software getting loaded into the network right in the beginning. So it is a myth to say that open networks are not secure. And then automation and analytics in this such a automated network allows you for a deeper insight, which could further help in policymakers framing the right policies by looking at the analytics information in the network. And we are seeing active involvement of Indian companies in this global open RAN market, and this ecosystem is there to grow. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm open for questions.